Hello all, I'm Sai and you're watching The Book Dragon. In today's video, I'm bringing to you the second part in my discussion of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix by J.K. Rowling. So without any further ado, let's get into the video. Also, if you have not watched the first part, I will link it down in the description. Go check it out and then you can watch this. Even if you have not watched it, you can watch this if you have read the book. But if you have not read the book, don't continue with the video because it's going to be filled with spoilers. You can go read the book, come back and just watch both the videos because it's going to be a load of fun because I've got a lot to talk about this book. That's why I've split the discussion into two. So go read it, come back and then we can chat about the book. I'd like to start by saying something which I actually gave us as like a hint in the first part of the discussion, in which I spoke about Ron and Hermione, right? They became the prefects. That is like a major step up for them in the fifth year, and they are trying to be as normal as they can with Harry. Okay, he's not being normal at all because of the PTSD that he's going through. There are a lot of things which he just bursts at them. Okay, how to say, he's just rude with them because he can be, and there are a lot of times when he's unreasonably rude also. They don't take it in a bad way, they just understand what he's going through, and they are so empathetic guys. That's what I liked about Ron and Hermione in this book throughout. And also Ginny, who's actually going to be the pair of Harry in the further books to come. She has also been developed in a superb way by Rowling in this book. Okay, it might seem like Ginny is not such a good character if you've just watched the movies because she's not been done proper justice at all. Okay, Ginny is such a better character when it comes to the books. Her comebacks are just awesome, and if you do read the books, you'll love Ginny a lot more. The next thing that I like to talk about is the visions that Harry actually has, and due to one of his visions or his dreams, which we can say, he ends up saving the life of Arthur Weasley, who's attacked by Nagini, and he just finds it out because of his connection between himself and Voldemort, and he saves Arthur, and the Weasleys are like a lot grateful for him in order to because they just saved Mr. Weasley, who's Arthur Weasley. That's such a beautiful scene to watch as well as read. And also after Mr. Weasley is attacked, he's actually admitted at St. Mungo's, and the people, all of them, they go and meet him over there, and in that place only, who's that? I don't remember. Gilderoy Lockhart from the second book. He is also admitted after having obliviated himself due to Ron's broken wand, and he doesn't remember any stuff. He's basically a mentally retarded person right now in the hospital, and apart from these people, they also end up seeing the Longbottoms, who have totally lost their minds due to the Cruciatus curse that was used on them by Bellatrix Lestrange. Neville has never talked about his parents to his friends ever, but Harry had found about Frank and Alice Longbottom in the fourth book itself, but he hasn't shared that information with anyone because he doesn't think that it's right for him to discuss about Neville's parents to other people without his consent, so he doesn't do that. In the movies, it is just shown as a hint. Okay, they don't go to St. Mungo's at all. It is directly Arthur's attack. Then we get to the scene in which actually the Christmas party happens, and that's when everyone feels grateful for Harry. And Sirius is also continuously in touch with Harry, Ron and Hermione by using the Floo network, but it is cut down at a particular point when Umbridge takes control of all the Floo networks, and she's continuously monitoring each and every part of the Floo network. Okay, that was a nice twist to the story. It wasn't so convenient for them to speak as usual like before, and Hagrid also is not that much easily available right now. Okay, for nearly half the book, Hagrid is not at all there. His presence is not at all shown, and when he comes back, when he is actually seen in the story, he is injured a lot. He has a lot of bruises, and they are not able to guess what Hagrid has done. But Hermione, as usual, she just finds that out also, and Hagrid has actually gone to speak with the giants in order to get their approval to join their side when war is waged. But they have also been persuaded by the Death Eaters to join Voldemort, and they have taken the darker side right now. And Hagrid ends up bringing back his stepbrother, who's his little brother, a giant, and Grop. He brings him back, and he introduces him to Harry, Ron and Hermione so that they can take care of him, because Hagrid is likely to be sacked by Umbridge for no reason at all. She's just being the B word again. Okay, and these are certain stuff which are going parallelly, and they're also handled in a very proper way by Rowling. The next best thing in the book is actually the practice or training that Harry is kept in order to given in order to keep his mind shut down, but he doesn't end up being successful in that. But the training that is shown as part of this process is it was shown in a proper way by the book, and it also has a major turning point in the actual story of Harry Potter as a whole, in which Dumbledore actually entrusts Snape to train Harry in occlumency in order to make him more controlled of his thoughts, so that Voldemort doesn't have access to Harry's memories and he can't just possess Harry so easily. Harry is trained by Snape, but as he doesn't like Snape, he's not that much willing to learn it from him, yet he has to. What happens is, during this going on, Snape, in order to train Harry, he sees certain memories of Harry, and Harry in turn puts out counter charm, and he sees the worst memories of Snape, that is during the time of Snape's in Hogwarts as a student, and how he was treated by James and Sirius. Okay, and that's one of the main reasons why Snape actually hates Snape. Okay, James, because James was such a bad guy. Okay, he was just a bully. There's nothing for Harry to be felt proud of when it comes to his father. When it comes to his mother, it's totally opposite. Okay, Lily's been Lily is golden actually throughout the story, and Harry will feel proud in order to be the son of Lily, but not that proud anymore to be the son of James, because James was just a bully. He was nothing more. He was just like Draco Malfoy, but that he was in this Gryffindor instead of Slytherin. That's the only difference between James and Draco, and he was such a horrible character when it comes to the flashback of the story. The thing that I'm going to say now is actually the heart piece of the Order of the Phoenix, which is the DA, that is the Defense Academy, or the Dumbledore's army. Okay, this is actually the way in which the students actually work together in order to embrace their magic, and how they should learn to protect themselves from the evil forces that are actually waiting for them out there. That's great. Okay, they are being rebels. They are breaking the rules. They are doing it with the help of Hogwarts itself. Hogwarts just gives them the room of requirement. It is just like Harry says in the movie. Hogwarts wants them to fight back. It actually wants them to fight back, and it provides the room. But they practice so great, guys. It is not possible at all for the end scene to happen without this training, which had been going on for months in secrecy. It was superb in that sense. And also we have this inquisitorial squad, which B actually sets up again, and it's actually a group of students who are going to be tattletales. That's all. Okay, they're just going to tattle about the other children who are actually learning to do stuff against dark magic. Okay, and they are just going to get some credits or shit for that, and that's how it works. Okay, when Umbridge actually finds out about the DA, she goes and tries to coup Dumbledore out of the castle, but Dumbledore just escapes. And in the next few days itself, the exams end, and Harry, Ron, Hermione, and the whole crew, they are caught as a whole by Umbridge. And Hermione, being the clever one as usual, she just tricks Umbridge and makes her taken by Grawp, which is one of the best scenes. This is the most blissful scene for me to have read in this book, because that's the only scene in which Umbridge is actually physically hurt. Okay, I wanted her to experience that. That was my sole desire throughout the time while reading this book, because she was such a bad person. Okay, that was horrible. I didn't want her to feel good things at all. I just wanted to see her experiencing certain horrible things, and this was just like a slice of it. But I felt good after reading that scene. And after all these happen, they find out about the prophecy and go to the Department of Mysteries, and they take the Testrals. That's the best part, and that's actually the cover image of the book. You can see, right? Harry and his friends, they are just going on the Testrals to London, to the Ministry of Magic, and there are a lot of things that are going on there. Okay, the Death Eaters come in order to get the prophecy as well. They are actually waiting for Harry to come and take it, because other than Harry and Voldemort, no one else can take the prophecy, because it's about them. Only a person who about whom the prophecy is can actually retrieve the prophecy. So they wait for Harry to come and take the prophecy and try to take it back from him. But what actually happens is there's this huge group duel that happens between Harry and the DA, Harry and the DA and the Order of the Phoenix and the Death Eaters, during which the most horrible thing in the book actually happens. That is, Sirius is killed by Bellatrix Lestrange, and things happen. Okay, during this time, Bellatrix tries to escape. Harry just chases her, and Voldemort just comes in. Okay, he tries to take control of Harry again, and that's when the game changer actually comes. Dumbledore comes again. There's this epic duel between Dumbledore and Voldemort, and Dumbledore, as usual, just shuts up Voldemort and sends him back. During this time, the Ministry also comes, and they actually literally see Voldemort being present, and that actually changes the whole story and makes everything that Harry said, which are true, actually true. And that's how the story actually ends. I loved that part a lot. And also the Weasley twins, they give such a hard time for Umbridge. I just loved that. During the Owls exams, they are not concerned about the academics anymore, because they plan to give it up and start their joke shop, which I think is the best decision for them. Okay, and they'll be like the masters of the world when it comes to such things like that. And if I had been there, I would have been glad to join them as a third wheel. It would have been awesome. Okay, and it was such a good book, guys. So if you're planning to read this, I'd highly suggest you to read the entire series. The first 3 books are small, but the rest of the series is chunky, and this is the most chunkiest of all the books. But I'm sure that while reading this, you'll enjoy it throughout. That's it for today, and if you did enjoy watching this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. If you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.